Ladies and gentlemen, today we have some absolutely breaking news. You see, after months of dragging his feet and acting like a petulant child, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy has finally caved to President Trump, ultimately agreeing to President Trump's minerals deal. But now, this minerals deal didn't just come out of thin air. No, it came after relentless pressure from President Trump, whose unshakable America First negotiation strategy has just forced Ukraine's hand and proven once again that when America leads with strength, the rest of the world falls in line. Zelensky's decision to accept this mineral deal is really a full-blown capitulation to President Trump, because keep in mind, just weeks ago, this very same deal was rejected. In fact, because of Zelensky's past antics, just earlier today, Secretary of State Marco Rubio came out and said that if progress isn't made with these negotiations in the next couple of days, America is going to move on altogether. And so, folks, this is why Zelenskyy has now capitulated to President Trump. This is his final chance. And so, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at what President Trump himself had to say about all of this yesterday afternoon.
See a minerals deal signed this week, is that?
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott.
Next Thursday.
Soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that. No, I have no comment on that. I have no idea. That's his statement, not mine.
All right, so folks, let's talk about what this minerals deal really means. First and foremost, this is a decisive victory for the American taxpayer. After years of giving Ukraine blank checks under the Biden administration, President Trump has drawn a line in the sand. No more unconditional aid, no more charity. If America gives support, America is going to get something back in return. And so that something is full access to Ukraine's vast mineral wealth, the kind of rare earth and strategic minerals that replace our previous dependence on China, which, thanks to Trump's ongoing tariff war, is no longer our go-to trade partner. Folks, really, this is economic warfighting done the right way. The minerals we're gaining access to are essential for everything from defense tech to clean energy manufacturing, and now we're getting them from a country we helped defend, not from an adversary like the Chinese Communist Party. But you know what? Let's not forget, Zelenskyy initially rejected this minerals deal. He thought he could hold out, complain publicly on the world stage, and wait for unconditional support, but as always, President Trump came out on top. And now, take a look at what Vice President J.D. Vance had to say about this entire situation with the minerals deal not too long ago.
You're exactly right, Sean. When the Ukrainians came to Washington on Friday, it was supposed to be ceremonial. You know, there had been some public back and forth, some disagreements, some words spoken in public. And the president was like, let's have this moment. We give some credit to the brave Ukrainian fighters. And of course, it's a very brave army that they have there in Ukraine. Let's sign this minerals deal, which importantly does two things. It allows the American people to get some of their money back, but it also shows the Ukrainian people that America has a long-term investment in their sovereignty. You do those things, we'll sign this thing, we'll have a rah-rah moment, and then we'll get to the tough talk of negotiating peace. We couldn't even get the Ukrainians to a point where they could talk about the peaceful settlement. And look, in some ways, Sean, I get it. I get the frustration. I get the rage. It's their country. Of course, it's not our country. But you've got to accept, cooler heads have got to prevail. This thing cannot go on forever. This is the important point. I'd say this to our, of course, most importantly, the Americans who are watching, but people all over the world. When you talk to leaders in private, whether they're Ukrainian or European, when you talk to people in private, they will tell you this cannot go on forever. There aren't enough Ukrainian lives, there isn't enough American money, and there isn't enough ammunition to fund this thing indefinitely. The only realistic pathway to bringing this thing to a settlement is President Trump's pathway. We encourage both President Zelenskyy and President Putin to follow that path.
So, folks, really, this entire situation is about leverage. President Trump has it, Zelenskyy does not. This entire situation, the complete and total reversal from Zelenskyy, the progress on peace negotiations, and now the finalized minerals deal, it all proves one thing. President Trump has the leverage, and he knows how to use it. President Trump gave Zelenskyy a very simple and very fair choice. Sign the deal, repay America for the support that we have given Ukraine, or you're on your own. But you know what? Let's keep something in mind here. This deal isn't really even about money or minerals or getting repaid. Really, it's about ending this war. In fact, take a look at what the president of Finland had to say about all of this just the other day.
The discussions I had with President Trump in Florida are basically, two very simple messages. Number one, he is probably the only person in the world who can mediate the peace between Ukraine and Russia. Why? Because Putin respects and in many ways fears Donald Trump.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. And as I'm sure many of you know, he is absolutely correct. Everybody with half a brain knows that President Trump really is the only person that can end this war, and this war really does need to come to an end. But okay, you know what? What do you say we try to break down this entire situation with the minerals deal? This is what America is getting out of this entire deal. Strategic access to critical resources, reduced reliance on Chinese imports, a blueprint for reciprocal aid going forward, increased leverage in Ukraine-Russian peace talks, and most importantly, real accountability for every U.S. tax dollar spent overseas. And so, folks, let this be a reminder, this is how foreign policy is supposed to work. America first. Not just aid for the sake of aid, but smart, calculated strategy that really puts the needs of the American people first and foremost. Because why should the United States sacrifice billions of dollars and give up leverage on the global level only to get absolutely nothing in return? That was the Biden doctrine alongside the Democrats, but that is not the President Trump America First doctrine. And once again, I can't overstate this enough, these minerals we're about to be getting from Ukraine directly replace the ones that we've been getting from China. So not only is this a deal with Ukraine aimed at ending this never-ending war in Eastern Europe, it's also a direct blow to China's influence over the U.S. economy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is two problems neutralized with one deal. And this is why we all voted for President Trump. And so while the far-left progressive media continues to pretend that this is just some minor diplomatic update, we all know the truth. This was an absolute diplomatic masterstroke, a final checkmate from the only guy who could have pulled it off, President Trump. And so once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is what it looks like to put America first. But now everyone, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say real quick that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be a wrap for this video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. Also, if you guys enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.